Yes, I can hear you back. It's nice to be back. For those people I saw last night, for some people I've seen before, because I can see lots of familiar faces. Been really strange the past 24 hours, because I've been in a place that I'd never even heard of until I arrived here yesterday. And then I've gone out for a run and I see people I know saying, hey, how are you doing? And then I'll go and take a coffee and someone says, oh, hello, and there's lots of familiar faces. It's a really strange experience. But it's really nice to see you all. Now, you would think, given the fact I've only got 30 minutes, that I wouldn't be wasting any time on this. But I want to set some expectations. I definitely won't finish on time. Okay? I will try. God loves a trier. I think I can really do this okay in maybe 40. But that's all right. Because after the kind of break, I'm going to do the Q&A. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to borrow 10 minutes from the Q&A, okay? And do this instead. Because I think this might actually inform some of the questions that you want to ask in the Q&A. Because I'm going to go over some of the key aspects of what we do and why we do it. And prior to me coming up, and somewhere in the room, there are big signs that talk about leading and about, being a disruptor and a game changer, challenging the status quo. That's kind of been my life, to be honest with you. I'm just naturally one of those people. If there's a sign up that says you can't go this way, I go, I wonder why you can't go that way. And just climb over and go and have a look. That's the kind of person I am. And I found my place at Xenobiotic because that's exactly how they are too. And any of you who've listened to Orion or Hilda or Dag knows that it kind of penetrates deep in what they do. Second place is just not good enough. The idea is, what's the best way of doing this? Because if we do this the best way, then we know we can give people the confidence to make a change in life that matters. And the change they need to make is with regards to this. We didn't invent this. I want to promise you something. You may have heard, some people have mentioned it to me, you may have heard my talk that's about 2.5 years old now. Why Xenobiotic? Somebody in the room, can you put your hand up? Someone mentioned it to me yesterday. There's a couple people mentioned it. There it is. They mentioned it to me yesterday. I kind of forget about that talk. But I was living my life as a research coordinator working on 2 huge global health strategies. And the World Health Organization had published a document that said 6.3 billion people on the planet were estimated to have an omega-3 deficiency. And that this was a real problem. And so as a part of the research forum I was in, we were looking, well, how do you fix this? How do we need to address it? Omega-3 is an essential nutrient, so how do we fix it? And so I was working away on this, and then the world went into lockdown, and I'm not going to tell the rest of the story because it must be available somewhere, but you fast forward the clock and here I am now. It's become a part of my whole life, which is to address this problem. Because it is fundamental, because it is related directly to your cellular health. I'm a biologist, I'm a physiologist, I'm a cellular physiologist. What we spend our whole time looking at are cells. Because each and every single one of you is a collection of 37 trillion of them, approximately. And we know that this is an issue. Here's some of the proof. We are rapidly approaching 1 million samples in our database. We at Xenobiotic own the world's largest dry blood spot database with regards to omega-3 status. And it's global. And we're actually in the process of publishing this information in the peer review, in the scientific peer review. Because we should, because the world needs to know the reality. When we look at that data, what we see over here is the average person who doesn't take a supplement, just living their life. We can see different age ranges, and we can see that ratio of the arachidonic acid versus the EPA. The arachidonic acid being the omega-6, the pro-inflammatory one, which is essential, it's a key part of your immune response, and the EPA, which is the anti-inflammatory. And what we see here is the average ratio around the world is 14.8 to 1. That actually makes it look better than it is. Because in some parts of the world that we go to, it's way, way higher. So we have, data that influences the mean, the average. And this is because people eat too much fast food, they don't eat enough fatty fish, and they can't really, let's get real about it, and they eat too much omega-6. So when I say something like they can't really eat enough fatty fish, that sounds provocative. And I have to deal with those kind of nutritionists that are similar to how I used to be, which was to stand there and say, you should fix your diet. You should start to make whole food choices. You should start to cut down on processed foods, have less sweets, have less chocolate, have less alcohol, have less fizzy drinks. And everything I say is right. That's exactly what you should do. The problem is, we've been telling people that for 40 years, and everything's got worse. So at some point you have to go, okay, the message is right, but the delivery is wrong. We need to fix this. The other problem we have, if we're going to get real about the let's all eat more wild, line-caught, fresh, fatty fish, we have to eat it every day, pretty much. Minimum 5 times a week, ideally 6 or 7. There are currently 8 billion people in the world, which means we would have to pull out the ocean every single day, 8 billion fish, and then we'd have to do it again tomorrow and the day after. You can see where that's headed, can't you? It's not sustainable, it's not realistic, and would have a huge negative impact on the environment. Not doable. I appreciate the sentiment though. So, back before Zinzino, thinking about this problem, recognising we can't do it with fish. My mum was from Dublin, she knew nothing about nutrition, but still when I was a child she took cod liver oil capsules. So I thought, great, we'll look at supplements. I already knew about supplements in this area. I'd worked in it in sports performance before. So, let's look at supplements. This is the average supplement, not a Zinzino product, available. When we look at this, we see that the average value is 9.9 to 1. So this now is people who are taking another brand's omega-3 supplement. So what do we think of that score? Don't be shy. Bad. Now, anyone who was in the room with me last night, you know how this works. I asked you a question, and you answered. Yeah? Everyone all right with that? I think it translates to Norway. It works really well back home. Okay? So, what do we think of this score? Bad. Bad, Colin. But, is it better than this?
Yes. No.
Oh, that was a mix. No, yes. Someone going, oh no. Well, it's obviously better than this, isn't it? That's better, but it's meaninglessly better. Like, it doesn't matter. And the example I always give is if one of us was to have a soccer goal post here, we're going to have a competition. And whoever kicks the ball in the goal gets €1 million. And I kick it and I go flying off up there. And then you kick it and it's just outside the goal post. It's closer, but you're still not going to get €1 million. And in fact, it's harder for you to live with. You were close. I'm miles off. And I often meet people, and I'm sure you do, and you go, well, you know, we've got balance oil. And they go, yeah, I already take an omega-3, and I'm really happy with it. And it's cheaper. Okay, let's assume this is, I don't know, €10 a month. Yeah? You may as well drive down the road, put your window down, take that €10, throw it out, and then carry on driving. That's a really expensive hobby. That's way more expensive than balance oil. It doesn't do anything. What a waste of money that is. And I meet these people a lot, and this brings us back to the test. Way before my time, a lot of really, really clever people had the idea, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it the best it can possibly be done. And so they partnered with Vitas. Before I came to Zinzino, I knew who Vitas were. I was a lab director for the Queen's Laboratories in Greater Manchester. I know the international laboratory landscape. Vitas are world-renowned leaders in dry blood spot sampling. They partner with some of the biggest institutes on the planet. Oxford, Cambridge, Harvard, Stanford. They've worked with the NHS, they get centralised European funding. They are the best of the best. And so they developed a test that meets with the highest standards, which means that all of you, all of us, can do a valid, reliable, verifiable test at home, send it in the post, and we can get a quantified measure of exactly what our fatty acid profile is. And it's from the blood. And remember, blood is an organ. It's the most essential organ. You can have transplants, you can replace things, you can lose some things. Believe me, if I take all the blood out of your body to see how you get on, you won't get on at all. Blood keeps everything alive. If it's in the blood, it's everywhere. And so, we know that when we measure it, we're getting an accurate insight to where you are. Now, not only does this tell us that the average product doesn't work, but before I knew about this told me that the average product didn't work. Back now, April 2020, I'm trying to go, how do I fix this situation? Or at least come up with a suggestion. And I read the Cochrane review. Cochrane is the highest standard of statistical systematic analysis. And it concluded, quite simply, there is little or no effect of omega-3 supplements. 112,000 people across 79 high-quality trials, the average supplement doesn't work. So I enjoy it when somebody says to me, I take something else. I go, brilliant, it doesn't work. And they go, you sound confident. And I go, I am, take the test. Let's measure it. I know it doesn't work. Simple as that. I know it doesn't work. The research tells me it doesn't work. We're measuring this constantly. Our really valid, accurate measure upon which there is no market equivalent tells me they don't work. And you may say, well, Colin, there are lots of people offering tests now, online, different types of tests. You can test DNA, you can test all kinds of things, and some of those are cheaper. True. Good tests aren't cheap, cheap tests aren't good. We know all the standards around our tests and we publish them. We work with GMP certified, we are part of international collaborations that certify and ensure the standards of our tests, independently, third-party approval. They don't. They don't. And has anyone in the room, I love this, has anyone in the room ever done a DNA test online? Yeah? What did the information tell you?
Very little.
So, this is not me bragging now, but I have a degree, an MSc, a PhD. I'm a senior fellow of the Higher Education Authority. I'm a member of the Royal Academy of Arts and Science. I've studied at Oxford, I've studied at Liverpool, I've studied at King's College, and I did a test, and I got my data back. Didn't tell me much either. And I've studied DNA for 25 years. And I went, okay, that's money I'll never see again. Because they don't know what they just tell you, like there's something. A test is useless unless you can do something about it. We test so we can make a difference. And that's a key part of all the tests we bring in, and that's a key part of our thinking when we introduce a new test. So when we test, we are confident in the outcome. And here's the outcome. There's €1 million, back of the net, really happy, where you need to be, less than 4 to 1. The average person who's consistent, stays on product, achieves that within 120 days. 97.6% of people who commence balance oil get, even if they're over here, get over here in 120 days, because in 120 days, our red blood cell count turns over, we've got a new batch, and you're a new version of you. It's great, isn't it? Only one of the ways in which the body is amazing. Now, if you look at the literature, what you will see more often is this, which is the index, or the level, because your total amount of omega-3, in order for you to be in the lowest possible risk of developing a non-communicable disease, should be above 8%. Ideally, around about 10%. So what we see here is if you're less than 4, you're in the kind of pro-inflammatory. This is where your body genuinely, and I don't talk like this a lot, but I'm going to now. But the reality is when we're here, our body thinks it's dealing with a disease. even if you're non-symptomatic, even if there's nothing you can diagnose. Your low-level inflammatory markers are so persistent, the body's immune system is constantly going, what's going on? It's working against this. As we get into here, this is the 4 to 8 range, you're at moderate risk, but things are okay. But I worry about this group the most. Because in this group, everything's okay until it's not okay. And these are the ones who get caught out and are surprised. Oh, really? How did that happen? And then above here is our anti-inflammatory range. And again, this is the data we see. Follow this. This is what we see across those days and the change we see. So we don't just change the ratio, which is important, but we change the total amount, which some might say is even more important. Because when this is up around here, it's very rare that your ratio is not right anyway. So sometimes if you talk to somebody who knows a little bit more about this, they might not be familiar with ratio, it's a little bit complex, but they may know index or level. And then you can refer to this data confidently. We will be publishing all this imminently. The paper is written, a few of our scientific board are having a few last comments on it, and we're going to publish this, and it'll be available in the scientific literature for you to read and share. When that person says to you, but where's the research? Which actually is always an indication that they don't understand research. Promise you. They go, show me the paper that proves it. I go, okay. Show me the paper that proves that carrots are good for you. Where's that paper? Carrots are great for you. Et al. Research doesn't work that way. We look at the components. We look at the formulation. We look at the omega-3 versus the omega-6. The paper will never come out that says balanced oil is really good, you should take some. That's marketing. The scientific paper will deal with the components. So, how do we get you into balance? I should be now singing to the choir. I should be able to say, how do we get people into balance, folks? I just saw teams of people at one point. I thought everyone there was going to end up on stage. I was at the back watching, seeing people get recognised for what they've done. I thought there'd be no one left. It'd just be me clapping. So, you all know how it gets you into balance. And people ask me a lot, well, why does yours work? Why don't the others? First of all, it's not mine. I'm very proud and privileged to be the Chief Product Officer for an amazing team of people at Xenobiotic. But I didn't come up with this. I wish I had. Because if I had, I'd have travelled here by my yacht. I'd have drove my Bentley up to the hotel. But the science of it was so overwhelming when I first saw it that I went, why didn't I think of this? Not just because of the money, but because it makes so much sense. And eureka moments happen like that. Very rare, but they do happen. And thankfully, for Xenobiotic, in the mind of Ola Ada a long time ago, who was an incredible man who understands food inside out, he pieced it together and realized that when we refine the oil, we detach it from the polyphenol. And in nature, omega-3 always occurs in place with the polyphenol. And the polyphenol acts as a chaperone, protect it against exposure to the air and the heat of the body. And so, Xenobiotic being Xenobiotic, remember I told you, second place is not good enough? They didn't just go, okay, we'll get some extra virgin olive oil and we'll encapsulate the omega-3, that'll be great. They went, no, that'll be too easy. So they go for Picual olives that are harvested at a certain time, and then what they do is they go for the highest possible polyphenol count in the world to make sure that the density of polyphenols is such that even if it was to degrade in the bottle, by the time you consume it, there is so much to protect the omega-3 and itself act as a pro-anti-inflammatory that you're going to reap a ton of benefits. I don't know if we have any medical doctors in the room, but lots of my colleagues and myself included have spent the past 25 years encouraging everybody to take a teaspoon of extra virgin olive oil every day because we know the anti-inflammatory properties. And that's where the product begins. And then it acts as a chaperone and it protects. And we know the dosage rate to be effective. I weigh, today, 78 kilos. There are probably people in the room who weigh 70, 55, 45, 82, 100. Imagine a product whereby I go, it doesn't matter how big you are, everyone take 2. Does it make sense? It doesn't make sense at all. What we have is something that is dose related on your body size. And you all know this. I'm going to let you into a little secret though. And I know some people are filming this, but you can do all kinds these days with CGI. So this next bit might not be me. Okay? But for a lot of people, you may want to start at 0.2. Okay? 0.15 is safe, it's going to be really effective for a lot of people. If they do sport, if they exercise regularly, 0.2 is where I'd encourage you to start people from. You're still not going to max out. I know people always go, but you can take too much. And I go, it's funny, isn't it? We never have that conversation when you see an advertisement on TV for alcohol. No one ever comes on at the end and goes, but you can take too much, you know. When we started the vitamin D campaign, people go, oh, you can have too much. And you go, yeah, but there's 1 billion people with a deficiency. And the worst possible, most severe symptoms of a condition are related to deficiencies in it. Right now, the problem isn't we've got hospitals full of people who've had too much vitamin D. The problem is most people don't have enough. And at 0.2, you'll still be safe and you'll be effective. So, my philosophy on nutrition, and I'm a registered nutritionist with the British Dietetics Association. I've worked in nutrition forever. So much so that a lot of what I used to think I now know is wrong. That's the best part of science, is you can update your position and go, yeah, we're wrong. Sorry about that. We can do it better now. And I used to be one of those people. You know, because that's what we would say. We'd say, right, tell me all your sins. And people would lie. And you go, so tell me everything you eat. And they tell you little bits and they tell you stuff that they know you want to hear. Or they will list bad thing after bad thing after bad thing. And you shouldn't use good or bad, but let's be honest. So they'll say they've been to the burger place and they've been to the pizza place and they like chocolate every day and a cake and they tell you all this. And then they go, but I did have an apple for lunch yesterday. And an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Not against all that, it doesn't. You know, what are you thinking? But that's how people think. And I used to spend a lot of time saying, okay, we need to cut down on this, we need to back off on that, we're going to have less of this, and I want you to try more of that. And nothing changed. I was like every other ineffective person. But you know what I would do? I would cling on to the stories of the ones that were successful. And they would give me hope. And I'd say, yeah, you know, I worked with this lady, Samantha, and she did all this, and now she's a yoga teacher in Koh Samui, and she's in great shape, and it's changed her life. The other 500 people I saw last year, not so great. But let's focus on Samantha, because she's got it right. And that is so naive. We need to empower people with something that's going to make a difference to their health. And so, rather than deal with all that stuff, just give them what they need. Start to put the good stuff in. We know the diet is deficient in lots of nutrients and essential components, so let's just start to put them in. Because it's powerful when we do. When we start to add the right things, people start to feel differently. When they start to feel differently, they start to think differently. And actually, in the context of omega-3, that's really profound. Because DHA is an important part of brain function. 60% of the brain is fat, 20 to 25% of that fat should be DHA. So when it's deficient, key aspects of neurogenesis, the maintenance of brain tissue and the regeneration of brain tissue are compromised. And if you want people to do something differently, they have to think differently about what they need to do. But you can't do that when you just start restricting everybody's diet. So, the solution is the health protocol. It really is. Just start to put stuff in. Start to fix the situation. Start to make a difference. We balance, we restore, and we boost. And I'm going to quickly take you through each of those components. You may have seen me talk about this again. Hopefully this will either confirm what we've already discussed, or you'll pick up on something different and something new. 37 trillion cells in the human body. If you ever get the chance to go to a laboratory and look down a microscope at the cell, you will never see human life or any life on Earth ever the same again. It's incredible. I remember the first time like it was yesterday. I was in these dark laboratories. It was in the UK, which is typically quite dark and overcast, which helps. And I was in very old laboratories, looking down. The professor who was taking the class said, adjust your microscope and take a look. And we had these little sample plates. And my life literally was turned on its head. When you look inside the cell, you see the universe. And then you realize that everything around us is made of them. And we're made of them. This is the essence of who and what we are. And if this isn't right, then you're not right. And they replicate. So if it's bad today, it's bad tomorrow. They divide and they replicate. So they go 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, boom, 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 37 trillion, turning over on a daily basis. As we age, that process slows down a little bit. We can see that in changes in the colour of our hair, in our skin. Certain systems start to function slightly differently, all depending on how we use them and how we live our lives, for sure. But the cell is everything. And there's a lovely quote that I share a lot, which is that all life is made of cells, and all cells contain life. And if people thought of themselves in this way, and started to think of their self-care as nurturing these cells, this community of cells, they would have a very different experience of life on Earth. We'd also treat each other differently, maybe a little bit more kindness. And the outer membrane of this is a lipid membrane. And it's made up of various types of fats, the key indicators of the omega-6 and the omega-3. And like much of your body, when it's in balance, it works perfectly. And when it's out of balance, then things start to go the wrong direction. And so, by addressing that omega-3 need, we bring back balance. We get it so that the outer membrane is nice and malleable and dynamic. We can get nutrition in, we can get toxins out. Remember, absorption happens here. It's not just here. It happens in each and every cell. You give vitality and life to the cell by getting this right. And then go back to the brain. That DHA component helps you to think more clearly, more critically. Cognitive function is enhanced. When we start to change those gears, then we can start to think differently about other things that we want to do. Then we delve into this phenomenal, incredible space, which is the gut, which is the center of the human universe. We call it the second brain, which is naive because it develops first in the womb. It's actually the first brain. It's directly connected to the brain by the vagus nerve, which is a super highway of information sharing. But 90% of that information goes from the gut to the brain, not the other way around. And the gut is where emotion takes place. Up here we have neurological, our perception of the world, our sense of how we map the place. And in here is where that neurological turns to chemical. And chemical is where emotion comes into play. That's why you have gut feelings. That's why you can feel sick with emotion. You can feel joy in the stomach. It all stems from here. And it has this phenomenal ecosystem. And it's really simple. If you feed the right ones and keep them alive, 70% of your immune system exists within there. They'll function on your behalf and they'll keep you well. If you don't, then the not so good ones take over. That compromises your immune system, compromises your emotional state. You ever wondered why people get emotionally attached to food? We even have very emotional ways of describing food. And you will all be familiar with the term, surely, comfort food. Yeah? Someone give me an example of comfort food. Chocolate, ice cream, sugar. To this day, I've never met the person who has a really bad day at school or work or has a relationship breakup and says, that's it, I'm going to go home and I'm going to just eat broccoli all night. It doesn't happen, does it? And food manufacturers take advantage of this with bliss point technology. They create processed foods that influence serotonin, that influence dopamine and oxytocin. Dopamine is the reward hormone. And when you eat that, you feel like you've done something good. So you want to have that feeling again. Oxytocin is the love hormone. And so when these are manipulated by food, it's powerful. And that's why they comfort you. And so we take advantage of emotion in the gut. And so what we do is we restore it. And by the way, I hope you were paying attention to the details. 37 trillion cells make up who you are, but there's over 100 trillion bacteria. You are just a host for a whole ecosystem of life that is taking place within your gut. And actually all over, you've got microbiomes everywhere. But we restore this, we feed it with those essential dietary fibers that we know are lacking in most of the diet these days. 65 to 80% of the diet is made up of ultra-processed foods that are distinctly lacking in these things, and we put them back in. I love Xenobiotic because people experience it. And I warn them. I go, you're going to know you started to take this. They go, yeah. And I'll typically say, don't take 2 scoops. Start with half a scoop. And then once that settles, build up to a scoop. And then once that settles, but they don't listen. They go, no. If it says 2 scoops, I'm going to have 2 scoops. And then they go, phew. Because all of a sudden, the stomach, the gut comes to life. And they start to, dare I say, form stools correctly, and that's a different experience to what they had before. And so we do need to manage people through introducing this, but it's a powerful product. And it could be, who knows, it could be that sometime very, 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 very soon, we are in a position to introduce a groundbreaking test that enables us to determine just how effective this is. Who knows? Who knows? Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice? What would be even nicer, because we could do it now, but wouldn't it be even nicer if you didn't have to scoop into the toilet to take this out? I'm a scientist. I arrived going, why don't we just do that? Let's just take it on. They're like, no, Colin, welcome to the real world. Most humans aren't okay with that. So, who knows? What's this space? I actually think that when we discuss the balance concept and when we discuss health protocol, we could start here. We could start with the gut. But then I go, yeah, but we're made of 37 trillion cells. So let's start with them. And then we go to here. And the best way to do it is hand in hand, is to start with both. And then we get to this. Vitamins and minerals. Essential. Oh, you would not believe how much it irritates me when people talk about food and all they're interested in is calories. I'm going to make calories really simple for you now, because they are really simple. Are you ready, folks? You never need to have a conversation about calories again after this. Okay. Calories are energy. If you take too much, you put on weight. If you don't take enough, you lose weight. If you take the right amount, you're okay. All good? Brilliant. There's Dr. Cole's module on calories. And so if you want to lose weight, eat less. If you want to gain weight, eat more. If you're happy where you are, keep on going. Right then, back to the important stuff. This is the biochemical method by which your whole body communicates. If they are lacking, there are gaps in information. And there is a breakdown in communication. This is why when we see something like a vitamin D deficiency, and vitamin D plays a key role in immunological response, you have these phenomenal agents called CD8, CD4. Believe it or not, they're like little philosophers, because they know what's you and what isn't you. And they go around and they're on the lookout for pathogens. And when they identify them, they kick up the immune response to attack them and get rid of them. And vitamin D is an integral step in that communication. So if there's not enough, it's a slow communication. That gives the pathogen or the virus or whatever it is more of an opportunity to do what it needs to do. If it's not there at all, it's open house. It really is. And we can say the same about things like the A vitamin and C and certain ones of the B vitamins, and certainly actually omega-3. Omega-3 plays a part in that whole response too, as does omega-6. The pro-inflammatory recognizes and sends the signal to upregulate. So these are all essential. They are essential. This is how the body communicates. And forgive me if you've heard me say this before, but I'm going to say it again. If I asked all of you to write your autobiography and tell me everything about your life, your childhood, your teenage years, your first job, your heartbreaks, your romances, your best holidays, the worst moments in your life, your greatest achievements, I want to read that book. However, you're not allowed to use any words with the letter A, B, C, D, E, K, or Z. Okay? I look forward to reading. Do you think you're going to be able to get your message across as well? It's going to be hard. So when we think of vitamins and minerals, that's how we should think about them. How well am I enabling my body to communicate today? When they're deficient, it leads to problems. It plays an aspect in the immune system, the microbiome, and you have several all over the body, and key aspects of metabolism. Essentially, it plays a part in every aspect of what it means to be you. So we need to know we have enough. The problem is we know the average diet, again, made up of processed foods, is deficient in them. And so when we look at a product like Extend, we're not boosting immune systems. No one can. Your immune system is incredible. We're boosting the amounts of those vitamins and minerals you need. We're putting you in a winning position. So rather than go right then, every day I need to get this, I need to get this, I need to get this. Of course I want you to do that. I want you to eat dark leafy greens every day. I want you to eat fruit every day. I want you to have whole foods every day. But I also want you to have a guarantee that how inconsistent your diet might be, or how inconsistent the nutritional profile of those foods may be, you've got the right stuff in there anyway. And that's what Extend does. And if you take 4 Extend, which actually some people need to, some people don't, it's the equivalent of, in like nutrients, you would have to eat 3,000 kcals worth of the most nutritionally dense food available. Now, what I do is irrelevant, but I'm going to explain what I do anyway. At home, I have a really good diet, probably comes as no surprise, I'm a nutritionist, and I take every day 2 Extend, every day. If I increase my exercise, I start to take 3. And if I travel, I take 4 plus a Protect. Because I adjust it based on needs, demands, and variability. When I arrived here, I had no idea that the breakfast was going to be amazing with fresh avocados and eggs, which was like a dream. I was messaging people going, you're not going to believe this. And I actually felt excited about tomorrow. It's like, I know tomorrow I can have avocado and eggs. Sounds sad, doesn't it? I'm a simple man. But sometimes you rock up at a hotel and I go, are these eggs real? And they go, well, they're made out of that powder stuff, so there is egg in them. That's not for me. And sometimes you ask for avocado and they go, avocado what? So it can be a challenge. And so I adjust my behaviour accordingly. Simple as that. I would love to say to you, if I'm a bit run down or ill, then I do this. But I've not been run down or ill for about 22 years. But if it happens, I'll let you know what I do. And people go, aren't you lucky? And I go, yeah, I'm really lucky because I have like a really good diet and I exercise every single day and I don't consume processed foods and I take balance oil. I'm really lucky, aren't I? It's just luck. Aren't I lucky? It's all luck. And so, we're approaching the end, and I did say I'd be 10 minutes over, and I think I'm going to do it in those 10 minutes over. I'm proud of me, and I hope you are too. So we literally do, and this is really powerful, and some of my colleagues at various universities, who I love to bits, I've known them forever, but they go, oh, Colin, it's a bit of a strong statement to make. And I go, but it's true. I wouldn't say if I didn't believe it. And I do believe the health protocol is an antidote to how the rest of the world is structuring its diet. because it does make good on the problems that people face. And it starts to improve health. We haven't got time to delve into epigenetics, but epigenetics are the choices we make that change our gene expression. And epigenetics don't go, well, you're putting all this good stuff in, I would respond positively, but you had a chocolate biscuit yesterday, so I'm not going to let you off. It doesn't work like that. The minute you start to put good stuff in, you start to get a positive change. And that enables us to function differently. We start to control the emotion in the gut. We start to think more critically and constructively. And those cells start to become more vibrant. And that enables us to feel and do more. So it is the antidote. And through this, we are literally able to target and change and address all of these components. And prevention is better than cure. A lot of people like to discuss with me disease conditions. They'll say, well, if I've got this and if I've got that. Whatever disease you may have, it's always a good idea to optimize your nutritional status. It's only ever going to help. But that's not the space I'm focused on. The space I'm focused on, and the space that we are focused on as in Xeno, is preventative health. Because what's way better than trying to fix all those people who get sick is to stop them getting sick in the first place. That's way better. Way better. I've been asking this question for years at medical symposiums. Why don't we change our thinking? Instead of patching everyone up, why don't we go upstream and stop them falling in? And for a while, there was a cynicism about preventative health. And a lot of my medical and clinical colleagues were like, no, we just got to do this, and we've got this treatment and that treatment. And then the world went into lockdown. And we learned a lot of lessons. The biggest lesson we learned is too many people are at risk of being really sick. And we can't live that way. So we need to be preventative. We need to empower people to own their own health, make better choices, do things differently. And that starts with a test. That starts with a test that is reliable, valid, repeatable, as the highest possible standard, that can tell you something about yourself, but better still, empower you to make a change that matters, so that you can live better from the moment you know what your information is. So folks, 12 minutes over, I think that's amazing. Well done, Colin. What I'm about to do, because I always do this, is a selfie from the stage with all of you in. So you can either smile, you can either stand up or sit down, you can do that if you want. And it'll look like it was the most boring thing ever. But otherwise, I'm going to say thank you very much. I will be back in about 15 minutes for the Q&A. I hope some of that was useful. I hope all of it made a difference to how you think. I wish you all well. You are the most essential part of Xeno. It's a privilege to work behind the scenes on your behalf, to empower you with something that's real, so that you can go out there and change the families' lives, your friends' lives, your communities, because that's how, by holding hands, we will change the world. So thank you very much on behalf of Xeno. Now we're going to take a photograph. So take the stand up. Let's do it. It's a selfie. Are you ready?